That might be too much for me.
Okay.
That's a lot of emotions, a lot of personalities, and I tend to attach.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I guess we're all getting married together.
Yeah, you're like, this is my
forever.
wife now.
Yeah. This is my husband. We're
Yeah.
all together.
Yeah.
That's it. Are we moving in together?
Welcome back to Open Late Podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Esfandiary. And this week I have with me a dear friend. We've been friends forever. And I just learned something brand new about Miss Drea Renee.
Yeah.
And I was like, you have to come on my show and talk about this.
I can't believe I've been on here before.
It is wild.
Yeah.
I know. We've been 2 years, actually.
2 years?
This week.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about how long, because I know you have so many episodes. And I was like, how long has it been?
You came to the launch party.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Was that 2 years ago?
It was 2 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. At the Mandarin.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a fun party.
That was a very fun.
Yeah. We had like burlesque dancers. And
Yes.
I know. I like to, reminisce about that. Do it up. So we are going to be talking about something that I've never, ever talked about on this show before. And it's a miss that I haven't, because there's so much crossover with these topics. So we're going to dive right in, but I would like to introduce you all to Drea Renee, who is an expert in love and dependency, which I didn't even know about you.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, a lot of people experience this, but I think they don't understand how to label it. And so basically it's like any other addiction. Let's say if you have an alcohol addiction, gambling, food, when that becomes all consuming, it becomes your entire life. You can't think about anything. And so, like Jess said, we've been friends for a while, and Pasha makes all these jokes. Everybody calls me crazy. Dre's this jealous weirdo. And it's like, it comes from a place, right?
Yeah.
There's a whole trajectory that I've gone on to sort of get this, like, I need to be loved and I need these things. So just like with anything, you're trying to escape from something. You don't want to think about yourself, anything to get outside of yourself. And that's what relationships became for me. So as you know, you guys may not know, but I'm sober as well. So no alcohol, no drugs, nothing.
There's so much to unpack here.
So much.
Because I also stopped drinking in October last year. So almost a year, actually. It's been a year, I think, next week. And I think that this is such an interesting overlap, because you've been sober for
almost 15 years.
I was going to say over 10, almost 15.
Yeah, it'll be 15 next year.
Okay. And so we were having this conversation. I want to backtrack a little bit. Yeah, exactly. She started drinking when she was a baby. I want to unpack this, because when you shared with me that, I think you said something like, girl, if you think like I, was in AA, forget about AA. Yeah. I go to S.L.A.A. Right. And I was like, what is S.L.A.A. besides something that I'm putting on my burger later? And so can you share a little bit about the initial part of the journey and why you ended up going?
So when I got sober, just like with any addiction, it's like, it doesn't change your wiring. You just stop doing one thing, and that laser focus goes to something else. Yeah. Right. So it's like whack-a-mole. Right. It's like you
replace it.
Yeah, you replace it. It's like dating, food, gambling, sex, all the things, shopping, whatever it is. And so they tell you not to date in AA for the first year. So you can really focus on, not drinking and kind of getting back to your body and getting back to yourself. But a lot of times people do date. Yeah. And so all of that energy laser focuses in. Yeah. And to the person.
On the person.
And so I was in therapy, and my therapist said to me, she was like, I know you're struggling with the alcohol stuff, but she's like, I think you might be a love addict. Like, I'm not sure, but maybe check out S.L.A.A., which is Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous. Now, I was a little turned off at first because I heard sex addict, and I was like, that's not my experience. No.
You're like a lovey-dovey.
I'm like a lovey-dovey. That sounds good. And sometimes people also identify themselves as a romantic and fantasy addict in S.L.A.A. as well. And so it's like I meet someone, and it's just like an instant daydream. We're already married in my head. And so we make all these jokes all the time. I go on one date
with you.
I know. I go on one date, somebody kisses me, and so I'm like, we're together. Yes. Right? Like, you love me, right? I'm dead. But in my mind,
that's what
they
happened.
told me their last name, and I'm like, so Drea so I'm down.
Yeah.
Do it.
You're like, it has a nice ring to it.
It has a great ring, but I don't know them. Whoa. I know nothing about them. And so she started listening to my stories, and she's like, you just replaced. And I never thought about that. And what's interesting is they become everything. So it's like social life gone, like needing to eat gone, whatever they want to do, I'm into it. I remember I went on a date with this one guy and he was like really into surfing and being at the beach. And it's like, I have extensions. I cannot swim. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to handle this, but I'll just deal with it when I get there.
Oh my God.
And we get to the beach. He's like, Drea. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to stay here right now. Like the water's really not working for me today. You know what I mean? But it's like, I wanted to be with him so badly.
But you didn't tell him any of these things about your own personality.
Yeah.
You were like, I'm just going to be a part of you.
Right. But I'm just whatever you want me to be, like I'll be. Just so I can get you to love me.
Wow.
Right? Because it's like, that's what it is. I'm like, see me, love me. But it starts with childhood trauma and like my father and that whole journey. And so that's sort of how I got to S.L.A.A. And so it's like, I need a program to sort of manage my dating. Like me doing it by myself or just jumping in on my own without any sort of guidance. Not a good idea.
No, it's not working for you.
I got to check in with somebody. I got to be writing about it. I have to like sort of watch what steps I'm taking.
Wow. So do you still work sort of a program when you're dating?
Yeah.
Even
I
today?
mean, with the programs, I think it ebbs and flows. Like I've been in program for 15 years and like sometimes I'm going and then sometimes I'm kind of doing my own thing. But it's like a pendulum.
Yeah.
And then mug stops. And I'm like, where are you going? What are you doing? Where are you not calling me? You know, or whatever it is. And I'm like, I probably need to go to a meeting when all these things are like coming up.
And you can pinpoint it because you brought up your childhood and you brought up stuff with your dad. So do you want to share a little bit about, do you have like exact moments or core memories or events that happened to you where you were like, this is when I decided?
I think it was 7. Like we all know like about our inner child and how old they are and things like that. And I think my parents divorced when I was 7. And my parents had me really, really young. So it's like kids growing up with kids, not really knowing how to emotionally evolve and do things the proper way. So my dad,
you don't have all the tools.
He doesn't have, he's 18. My dad rode his bike to the hospital. Okay. Like, so it's like, I mean, how is he going to take
That's
care?
Very, very wholesome childhood stuff right there.
And then, you know, my dad struggled with some issues and that sort of just, you know, broke him and my parents up, but they did not communicate well. And there was a lot of like, my dad didn't show up and didn't pick us up on time. And so I'm learning that my dad doesn't love me and I have to like really work and I got to really chase and I really have to keep calling without answering. So these patterns just kind of trickled over into my dating. And the thing about it is, it's like, you can know that it's not healthy, but it's familiar.
Oh yeah. It's
and I'm
still
like,
your wiring. It's like you could realize all day long that it's not working for you.
Totally.
But until you have, like you said, a support or a program or these steps in place, these tools to interrupt that pattern, you're just going to keep playing it out.
Keep playing it out.
Like awareness is one thing.
Sure.
But you must put into practice completely new ways of being.
Yes.
Okay. So that's kind of what I want to talk about next. Like, okay, so you start going to meetings and you understand the program. Is it similar to like an AA program?
Yeah, and it's very similar. 12 steps, the whole thing. Everything's pretty much the same, only you're now discussing the love addiction and how to date. And it's from both sides, actually. It's not just for people who are love addicts or obsessing about that. It's also for people who are anorexic, they call it. That's a term in S.L.A.A. So people who do not date. So it's on the opposite side. So they don't want to get hurt. They don't want to like do anything. So they're like, I'm not gonna talk to anybody. Yeah. And so then they have to work to sort of start being with a person and doing all that. Cause that's not healthy either. To just sort of say, I'm not going to do anything with anyone.
So interesting. I had no idea that it was like the other end because it is a spectrum,
it
right?
Is, yeah.
I imagine that like so many of my listeners right now are thinking, wait, am I a love addict? Do I need to go? You know, do I have issues with like codependency? Because I think that everyone has a little bit of it somewhere.
Somewhere, yeah.
Yeah. So how did you start implementing this into your life? And like, how did it play out in your relationships?
I mean,
when you started to, from before you realized it to like when you started to change.
So it was sort of the same journey with substances and alcohol and things. I was like, this isn't working for my life. My life is unmanageable. I don't know what's going on. I know when I go out and I say I'm going to just do X does not happen.
Yeah.
Okay. Next thing I know, I wake up and it's like Monday morning and it was Thursday. And I'm like, how did I get here?
Yeah.
I don't know. But I knew I had a acting class.
I do wish that I knew you back then. We could have gone out like 1 or 2 nights.
Girl.
I know.
I was wild. But by the next day, you'd be like, Dre, you need to You need to get out of here. But I had an acting class on Mondays at 7 p.m. And I could not make it. I couldn't make the class. Like I was hungover or whatever. But anyway, so when I got into S.L.A.A, it was really messy. Like it's like, something isn't right. And I'm like, I'm not being treated well, but I keep showing up. And then something just started to click in my brain, especially being in therapy. She's like, look, these are your patterns. Let's talk about your father.
Yeah.
And when you see the parallel, it's like,
of the guy you were dating.
Yeah. Of just like, I would get off the phone with him, get off the phone with my dad, and they would both make me feel the same. And that's when I kind of had this moment of like, oh my God. And then also meeting people that you don't even know and just unpacking on them. I'm like, hey, here's all of my baggage. Can you take that? Sorry, what's your name again? And not even caring. And just kind of wanting a person there, not thinking about who they are, what their values are, what they care like. I just wanted a body there. And so I started looking at that, and then I went to S.L.A.A. And even though I was going to S.L.A.A at the time, I was still dating someone that was really toxic for me. And I would he would drop me off at my meetings. And he would pick me up. I was in a really bad spot. But I was like, I'm still going. So it's fine.
You're like, I'm going to apply all of this later.
Yeah. Because I was addicted to him. Like he was my everything. And then what was really unfortunate about that situation was he was a S.L.A.A addict too. So he had his own stuff. And then you put us together and we're both these codependency weirdos who like cannot detangle. It took us like 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah. It was like one of the messiest times in my life. Yeah. It was really, really awful.
Okay. So what does dating look like for you now that you have these tools and, you've been through it and you've helped other people along the way?
Yeah. I mean, dating now is, I got to go slowly. And it's still a struggle because it doesn't, in my opinion, these issues don't really go away. You just have to manage them.
Yeah.
And it's not like alcohol or drugs. Like I don't have to drink or do drugs to survive, but I want to be in a relationship.
Right.
And so when I see these things coming up or someone's tapping into those triggers, I have to back away. And what's unfortunate is the relationships that kind of spark that are what's exciting, right? And then the ones where the guy's like, oh, I'm going to call you back and text you back and be available. I'm like, ew. Why? But now I'm working through that and
You're like boring. Yeah.
Seriously. I'm like, you want to hang out again? I need to chase you, because that's what I know.
Right.
And so when those roles are changing and I'm feeling more like I'm worth it and I deserve this. And it's a process because it's not the natural wiring.
Right.
And so I show up and I'm like, Drea, this is where I need to be. This is where I want to be. And you just keep practicing it. But it doesn't always feel exciting.
No, well, because you're addicted to the chemistry in your body, that adrenaline, that dopamine, like everything that happens when you're in fight or flight, when you feel
it's like a motherfucker, man.
Yeah, when you feel like you can't have the thing that you want. And if you don't have the thing that you want, you're going to die, which is how
that's real.
Like you feel. This is how we all feel in these moments. This is how, the last 2 years of the show talking about non-monogamy, this is how most people feel when their partner goes out on a date, for the first time or maybe the 15th time, but they still haven't learned how to relax their nervous system and get to a place where they can tolerate it. And it feels, for some people, then they get to a place where it even feels good and they enjoy it and they love it and they, and then that becomes exciting. But it's such an interesting dynamic because the chemistry in our body is actually very neutral. It's the energy that we apply to it and project onto it, So it's like, oh, this feels really exciting for me and I really, really love the feeling. And for someone else, that same adrenaline is like, I'm gonna vomit. I hate this.
Right.
Like, I don't want to know what they're doing. Obviously 2 different scenarios.
Right.
But I think that for most people, like I said earlier, there is some element of dependency or addiction in there, and you see it across whether it be monogamous relationships, which is most of your experience, or non-monogamous experiences, because people chase that new relationship energy too. That like first couple of months of being with someone brand new, of course, you're like, everything's mysterious and you're learning everything about them and you're sharing parts of yourself to someone new that's never heard them. So like, it's fun. And people think that they're in love with these new people all the time, but they might not be.
Right.
It's just desire, a lot of times lust. And more often than not, they're like in love with the version of themselves that they get to be with that, person. So this is one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show, because I'm like, oh, this is so relevant to, I think, a lot of my listeners. And there's so much across the spectrum of whatever style of relationship you're in, whether it's monogamous, polyamorous, whether you're hot monogamy, whatever, which is like when couples are like still monogamous, but they like fantasize and they talk about everything and they like bring the idea of other people into the bedroom. And I think that this adrenaline rush that people want can be a healthy thing if you manage it, like you're saying.
I mean, that makes me think about, first of all, I want to say a lot of people don't know about this. I was talking to a girlfriend of mine on the way here, and we've been friends for like a year and a half, but I don't always talk about this. And she had no idea that this was even a thing.
No, that's what I said to you. I'm like, I have a show about sex, love, and relationships, and I've never had on anybody that's like an expert in dependency. What are we doing? You have to be on the show next week.
It's a real thing. And so, and you were just speaking about that feeling when you first start dating someone. So recently I was dating someone and I really took my time. And he represented in a certain way, and it was great, but it was too great. And I was like, because I know myself, and I was like, Drea, don't fall, just tip your toe in, because I'll jump in the whole thing. And like 5 months, 6 months, there was a whole different shade, but it took time to get there. But he had all these other layers, and it's not that like they were bad. It's just I needed to make a different decision, because I was like, is this a person that I want to invest in?
Right.
Because it's all nice when it's bright and shiny.
Sure, everyone's putting their best foot forward. It's like the first day of school.
Right.
Like wearing your brand new outfit.
I'm always like, let's just get in the mess. Sometimes I wish you could just give somebody a flashcard. I'm like, these are my strengths. These are my weaknesses. Just take a look. If you don't want it, give me my flashcard back. Like, I just want to get on with it.
Have you done speed dating?
I know. I totally should.
You have 5 minutes to talk about, like, here's all my baggage.
Yes.
We can do a part 2, but
I maybe should do that, because I'm like, I'm a lot, and I know I'm a lot.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting now dating, because I know certain aspects of my personality are just that. And meeting somebody, it's a different experience now after being in the program, because I know I have to go so slowly with someone. And I will see a person every single day of the week if they want to. I like them. I'm like, I'm down.
Yeah.
But that's not healthy.
Yeah.
But
that's great that you're learning to go slow. I think that like we move way too fast these days in society. And, I think that letting things unfold and taking your time and really getting to know someone before making like big decisions or like jumping in and taking all these steps can be beautiful. This is not a knock on like, having sex on the first date, which I do not mind whatsoever, or like jumping right in and like having a one night stand or something like that. But the whole like moving in together, only knowing each other for 3 months, or like, getting married right away, starting a family, like, and people are like, well, when you know, and it's like, I think that until you're with somebody for like 2.5 to 3 years.
That's what I heard. I just heard that the other day, 3 years.
Yeah, because the relationship that you have for the first 2 years is something entirely different. It's its own beast, and you will never have it again. You actually can't even like get back there. I mean, you can't get back anywhere. There's only moving forward.
Yeah, right.
But sort of what we were talking about with like the chemistry that happens when you are having that like chemical combustion with that person in the first 2 years. When like the sex is amazing and like they can do no wrong, and like but like that beginning thing, it's because their pheromones and your pheromones are doing something, and that chemical reaction literally wears off in 2 years. I know, it's so sad.
It's so sad.
It's so sad. But something new takes its place, and it's beautiful. And but that's when you really like, that's the test of time. It's like, okay, am I going to sink or swim with this person? Like, what does my love commitment look like to them? Am I committed to now watch them grow and develop and change and be an entirely new person from year to year, or sometimes month to month? I mean, look at me and Pasha, we're like growth addicts. So that's when you're like, okay, I'm going to be in it with this person. But this is why you see so many people jump from relationship to relationship every 2 or 3 years or so, because they're like, oh, this one's dead. This is not my person. But it's like, you just lost that NRE, that new relationship energy. but you're going to in the next one. The next person isn't going to solve the problem.
And that's so common now. People are just like ready to jump ship.
Yeah.
Nobody's trying to like really just, you
yeah.
know,
We have everything on demand. Like, why would
on
you,
demand.
like,
Yeah,
you could
just
get,
order somebody over here. Like,
yeah.
And that's it.
Well, we're probably going to get dinner after this, and it's going to be like 35 minutes to the door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seriously.
I think that is the trouble with society in some ways, with like dating apps and everything is so deliverable and so fast that it makes it challenging to take your time, as you were saying.
Because it's like, if you're not doing what I want, I'm going to go get on the app and, there's 5 other people that are going to do what I want as well.
Right.
So,
which in some ways is great. Like, it's brought the world to your front door.
Literally, you don't have to leave your home. It's kind of crazy.
When the options are endless, it can be overwhelming.
But then at that point, I think sort of like for you and Pasha, which you guys have already done this, but it's like you have to change your relationship style, because I do think it's beautiful to be able to still explore those options, but have your primary person. But not everybody can do that.
Yeah.
Not everybody can do that.
Well, you tried.
You know, girl, I mean, yeah.
How did it go? Like, because you dated somebody.
Yeah, we never actually got to the point of full on doing it. It was like a lot of discussion about it. But I think I was open to it because, one, we were long distance. So there was that aspect. And I think as I get older, I'm just more realistic that my partner isn't just going to have sex with me. And I don't even know if I want him to just have sex with me, right? Like, I'm interested in like having some fun times doing some things. I'm not like super adventurous, but you know, like a birthday or a holiday, you know. But I'm open
that birthday
to
hall pass is really nice once a year.
Exactly. Because I'm more real. But old Drea, 20 years old, I'm like, you ain't going.
Yeah, you're
when
not.
you going? He's like, to the bathroom. I'm like, I'll be watching.
Yeah. This is so good.
Yeah.
I mean,
but I'm like, what was that in me? Just constantly feeling like they were going to leave. And I think, you know, like I said, the trajectory with my father is so important, because that is really in there. I'm thinking someone's always going to leave me.
Yeah. And the thing is, they will.
Yes.
Everyone will leave. Even the partner that's going to, I know, I'm sorry, but they will. Like, even the person that's going to be with you and for the rest of your lives, like at one point, like, I'm sure, I mean, maybe not, because he's like, you know, Mr. Longevity over here, but I'll maybe die before him. I don't know who's going to die first. But like, that's the thing about this human experience, is we're actually alone. And
Jess,
I'm sorry.
Come on.
But that's why it's so important to do the work of like loving yourself and realizing that you don't actually need anyone. I know this is some sorry-free therapy.
I'm in love.
But I mean, of course, it's amazing to have partnership, and the partnership is, you know, I've done an episode on codependency, which we'll link in the show notes recently. I've also done an episode, by the way, I thought of this earlier, called "Your Partner's Not Your Superhero." It's a really old episode, and it's about the danger of the one, which we're sort of talking about, and it's an episode for. It's not about non-monogamy at all. It's actually geared towards, you know, more traditional relationships of like monogamy and how to make sure you don't fall into this trap. So check those out, because they're really good. Now I totally forget what I was going to say. But
you saying your partner's not your superhero, for me, like, so, because I'm still me, Drea. It's so triggering. I'm like, yes, they are. What are you talking about? They are your superhero.
Yeah, but
you know, but I push it. I'm like, I know, Jess, I know you're right. But my instincts, you should have seen me. I was like,
yeah,
I told you that.
You got into feral mode.
I did. But that is incorrect.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God, that's really funny.
Your partner's not your superhero, which is...
It's true, though. It's true.
You should check out the episode. It's a good one. And I think that I have no idea like what point I was going to make. Allie, do you have any idea where I was going? Okay, wait, we've got a question from Allie. Allie's our producer. She's been working on this show with me for a year. And
so cute.
We're bringing her into the studio these days.
Something I've been thinking. Do you feel like a non-monogamous relationship would feed your addiction in any sort of way, negative or positive? Like, it would be beneficial or negative, because there's still an aspect of like a chase if someone's not just yours.
Huh. I've never thought about that. Would it feed it? I don't know. I've never experienced it, but I think I would need to feel really safe with my partner to do something like that. Like, I would need to feel like I am their everything. And I don't know.
Yeah.
if that's even okay to say, right? Not like okay to say, like I can say it, but looking at if that's a healthy way to be or not, right? And I think it's just because I haven't had that sort of bond in a long time. And I would need to feel like, hey, this is my person. They've got my back. I've got their back before we like opened things up. Because I'm more interested in that these days versus I think before, if someone wanted to just quickly do that, I'd be like, yeah, okay. And not think about
nothing about yourself.
No.
Because you're trying to please.
Yeah. But now I know I have to take these slower steps. I'm not opposed to it. It's not a hard no like it used to be, but there would have to be very careful.
But do you think that it would keep you excited to know that your partner would be on a date with someone else? Okay.
These solo adventures, I don't know about that.
Okay. Oh, so you're only talking about like threesomes with you.
Yeah. I gotta be there. That's where I would need to start. Okay. Like maybe it could evolve into something else, but like solo, you on a date? Oh God, I have heart palpitations. I'm not there yet.
Yeah, which is normal. I think most people start from a place where they're opening a monogamous relationship, and going to explore and mostly want to have like threesome or foursome or whatever the case is, or go to a sex party and watch, those things are really fun
for that.
Yeah. And that's like part of how monogamy, like don't even do anything with anybody else, but like watch other people have sex or have sex in front of other people. But it's interesting because I love to see how you got like, okay, so it obviously is feeding her addiction in some way, probably negatively at this point in time. Now, what about entering into a dynamic like, for example, what Posh and I had with Lauren for years? You meet a couple and you know that they're married and that like they're maybe, and I hate using the hierarchical terms, but I mean, they're there for a reason. Like they're primary partners. They're priority is each other.
Absolutely.
But they want to be with you and they want to like shower you with like love and they want to date you and they like really enjoy your company. And when you're with them, you feel like amazing.
Right.
Like you're like, I am their number one priority in this moment. Right.
In this moment.
But like, I know that they have their relationship and this could go on forever or it could end next week or whatever. Would you find yourself... Maybe it wouldn't. I don't know. Do you think you would entertain a relationship like that for the experience, or would that be too much?
That might be too much for me. Okay. That's a lot of emotions, a lot of personalities, and I tend to attach.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I guess we're all getting married together.
Yeah. You're like, this is my wife now.
Yeah. This is my husband. We're all together. That's it. Are we moving in together?
See, that's how I was with Lauren. I'm like, she's going to have our baby, right? Yes, like, that's how we're going to make this thing happen. We don't need a surrogate.
Exactly.
Posh and Lauren were like, no, this is not what we want.
Like, we're all integrating.
Yeah.
This is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where my brain would go. Yeah, but I don't know if I could manage all of that.
Okay, so for you, it would have to
be... a pop in, see you later.
Yeah.
Bye, Felicia.
Which is when I always recommend for couples to hire a sex worker.
Yeah.
Hire somebody.
People have really bad ideas about that.
For sure. But let me tell you, there are amazing tantric masseuses, somatic sexual body workers.
Yeah.
Even just like you would hire an escort. Like the same. I mean, I know everyone's like, okay, is this legal? Is it not? Do your thing, get your needs met, and doing it with a professional who like loves being with people and loves like loving on people is amazing. I mean, we've like had our fair share of threesomes and moresomes, and it took us actually years before we actually were like, oh, let's like hire somebody. That would be really fun. Right. We wanted a different experience. We actually wanted to go to a dungeon.
A dungeon?
Yeah, we went to a dungeon in New York.
You went to a dungeon?
For my birthday. Not last year, the year before.
Like, where did people find these places?
I know. God. I mean, our old assistant found her. I'll find out. But it's such a great way to know that, like you said, I need to pop in, pop out. Bye, Felicia. Because when you're potentially doing this with like a pedestrian is the wrong word, but like, a person that you would meet on an app. Yeah. They're a whole person with feelings and intentions and motivations and aftermath, and you've got to account for that and bring them in and take care of them as a human. You see a lot of unicorn hunting gets a bad rap because couples are like, oh, I just want to be with this person and then bye. So that's when it's like, okay, we'll hire a sex worker because that's what their job and their role is, and they
Right.
know that. Right. So I felt the need to make that distinction because it's a good one. Yeah. You happy, Allie? Yeah. Oh my God, I realized I've had my feet up the whole episode.
Whoa.
Allie says no free feet on this show.
I'm obsessed with no free feet. Make it a hashtag.
Okay, so my feet are probably out of the frame, but they were up for the whole time. It's because my legs are too short. Okay, so Andrea, I know that people listening to this episode right now are thinking, me too, probably. They might be.
100%.
Yeah, and like as we said, there's a spectrum, but across that spectrum, I'm sure you have tips and tools for people who might be like, okay, I think maybe I go to a meeting, or I think I explore a little bit further in this. Like, are there books or other like works that you would recommend, or you know, for people to go to a meeting? Like, what is the thought process and steps that you would say, okay, yeah.
I think if you are wondering if you have any sort of love addiction, I think you look at how relationships show up in your life, right? If they are taking over, if you find like your friends are saying things to you that you are moving plans to be with this person and they're not doing it for you. And for me, it was like a physical experience that I would have where like I literally felt like I was going to die, like if I couldn't be with this person. And it took over everything. I'm obsessing about my text messages. I'm running late for work. Like it literally was all encompassing.
Yeah.
So those were kind of the first signals to me, especially when you're not getting it back. And as an anxious attacher, the avoidant, running away and doing all those things, I kind of was like, okay, I need to figure out how to navigate this.
Yeah.
Another thing too is when people are telling me all the time, Drea, just don't call him. Drea, just don't do this, because they're not understanding that wiring. So being in a room full of other people that are going through the same thing was so helpful to know that, oh, I shouldn't text him. Gee, thanks. I didn't think of that.
Right.
I hate when people would say that to me. So a huge indicator for me was looking at how I was navigating other aspects of my life, like my work, seeing my friends, my family, and then the conversations they were having with me being like, hey, are you all right?
Yeah.
Because this is a lot. And then talking about it all the time. Are you talking about it all the time? Are you texting when you're hanging out with your friends or family? Is that all you're talking about?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Those are amazing indicators. And I love what you said about being in the room, like going to a meeting and feeling seen and understood.
Yes.
So if you are feeling any of these things for yourself, then maybe get your ass to a meeting.
Yeah. And S.L.A.A, if you go on their website, they have questions that you can answer to figure out if maybe.
Oh, that's so perfect.
Yeah.
We're going to link that in the show notes as well. Is it like a little quiz?
Yeah. There's a quiz you can take.
I am a love addict.
Yes. I got 100%.
Did you?
I did.
Nice. You're on that end of the spectrum.
I'm on that end of the spectrum.
Yeah. Okay, man. Before we go,
yeah.
What is exciting for you right now about relationships? Like, are you dating at the moment? Are you looking to date? Are you focused on yourself, work, career?
It's actually just a bit of a combo because I was just in something that was really intense and it was sort of tapping into those things.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I'm dating, but I'm just taking my time and focusing on me because I know how I can get.
Yeah.
And those things were they were coming up in that last situation. So I was like, okay, I still have some work to do.
Yeah.
But I do want to be in a relationship. I do want to be with somebody that's on the same page as me and like just do something healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I really want to do that.
Great. Well, you heard it. She's looking to date. So if you want to date Drea, right into the show. Allie will field all of the suitors.
That's true. Yes, that's actually true. Yes.
I love you, girl. Thank you so much for doing this. This was so fun.
Yeah. I'm so glad we did it.
Yeah, me too. All right. We will see you next week. Back on Open Late Podcast. Always remember to rate and review the show. We're going to tag Drea in the show notes as well so you can find her. She does all sorts of cool shit all over the world. Yeah. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.